It's something new for me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But seems to me people eat all the time here. It seems like it's like a national habit in this part of the world just to eat. Um, so so um, it's it's the way people live. I mean, there's a word in English, frugal, and it means to be careful with your money. Okay? Yep, it means to be careful with your money and to be careful with your resources. It's not a negative term because a negative term would be something like mean. And to be mean is to not give things to people. Yeah. So if you say someone is mean with their money, it's a negative term. But if you say somebody is frugal with their money,
Mm-hmm.
it's a positive term because it means they're careful with what they do. And living in um, Central and parts of Eastern Europe, I learned to be frugal with my resources and things. You can make a little um, go a long way. You know, you have people in that part of the world traditionally didn't have much and didn't have a lot of money, and so they had to learn how to make something last a long period of time. You know, they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
People don't change their. People didn't. Or people don't or didn't change their car very often, or their furniture very often, or a lot of other resources because they were hard to get as well. Um, and so being frugal with things and being careful with things like food is always, I think, quite important. And I've noticed in this part of the world that people people treat food like a disposable resource. So
Uh-huh.
much there's food everywhere, and it seems to be available to people all the time. And people seem to spend a lot of their time thinking about it, or even or even it's not always negative, you know, because it could be that people like cooking, for example, and they
Mm-hmm.
like to make different kinds of foods, and and they have time for it, and that's not a bad thing. But I've sort of noticed everybody knows that the West has a problem with the obesity and people being overweight. It's something like 60 to 70% of Americans are overweight, something. It's the same in Scotland, like 60 to 70% of Scottish people are overweight. And um, it's not so much a sign of the economics, it's a sign of the mentality or psychology of people. So um, I think that it's interesting to note what people eat and when and how people make their choices regarding food, especially when we see certain things becoming more complicated and prices
Mm-hmm.
rising. And um, you know, just as a socioeconomic fact, there are apparently 1 to 2 million people in Britain who can't afford food. Right? Apparently, they can't afford to buy food in the country, and it's quite crazy for a so-called developed country to be in that kind of economic situation. So very interesting and odd, a lot of the things that are happening. But food matters. You got to put some kind of energy into your body. But I also think that the general habits that people have are much more related to culture than what is practical. So, you know, every country has its own types of food. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Slovakia has its food, the Czech Republic has its food, Hungary has its food, Germany has its food, Britain has its food. Um, but uh, yeah, it's interesting. I think people eat a lot of the wrong foods and they eat a lot at the wrong times, and there's a lot of negative habits connected with it, and especially in prepackaged foods
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it's interesting just to look around. I think I mentioned before that prices of things increasing, and um, it's I see it most visible when people say go to a restaurant and spend money or buy food or go out and do something, which is becoming increasingly difficult. I mean, 20 between 25 to 50% of all restaurants and pubs have closed in Britain in the last 5 years. Yeah, that's huge part of the what would I call it? Is it the entertainment sector? No, it's the social cultural sector.